Welcome to Plant Medicine Transmissions with Javier Regueiro. In this episode of Plant Medicine Transmissions, I would like to explore a couple of ideas from the book The Transcendent Unity of Religions by Fritjof Schuon, who is acclaimed by many as the greatest authority on comparative religions of the 20th century. In this book, Fritjof Schuon makes a point about the unity of all religions, meaning that all religions' spiritual paths lead to the same place. He distinguishes between the exoteric and the esoteric aspects of religions. The exoteric, the most outward expression of religion, often differs wildly among cultures. However, once we go deeper into the path and reach the esoteric level of that religion, we find out that they all speak of the same thing. However, he goes a step farther and points out very poignantly to the fact that each religion has been born of a particular place, a particular culture at a particular time, as a way to address particular themes from that context. In present times, we tend to stress what is similar in all paths and forget that each path is very specific and addresses very specific themes and different aspects of the human experience. It is easy for us to point out the similarities among paths. It takes a little bit more effort to actually engage in those paths and see that they are unique in and of themselves. And therefore, to alternate, to interchange one path for another by telling ourselves it's all leading to the same place kind of misses the point as far as I'm concerned. It's a little bit of a superficial statement that indicates that we don't actually have engaged in this path long enough to actually see its specificity and its unique qualities. Many people nowadays are prone to engage in many different spiritual practices, including plant medicine, including healing modalities, and kind of jumble everything up together or pick and choose at random according to their moods and wishes. The first thing that I would like to say about this is that each path has a unique flavor, and also it is a whole in and of itself. It is a complete curriculum that, if we follow to its very end, does not need anything else while we're engaging in this path. Each path was designed in the past by teachers and is the description in terms of practice and guidance according to what worked for the person who wrote this, who taught this, in order to see the benefits and to get to the real gifts of each particular path. It is important that we follow it to its final end. But what happens nowadays is that the moment we feel dissatisfied, we feel impatient, we don't get what we had hoped for, then we simply go to another path, engage in another discipline, or start combining disciplines in order to unconsciously look for a shortcut. These spiritual paths are fraught with obstacles, are full of challenges. It is by facing those challenges that we make progress. It is not, unfortunately, by going somewhere else or turning a blind eye to the challenge that has presented itself and is now asking for our attention. Each path presents its own particular challenges, and sometimes these challenges are a little too overwhelming, and we come to a halt, we feel stuck. But engaging in another path is not going to solve that particular challenge. That particular challenge will resurface eventually as part of our own growth and healing process. So looking elsewhere is really just a way to buy our time and not a source of long-lasting solutions. At some point along each path, we will meet our own demons. We will meet our own most stubborn self and our most recalcitrant ego. There is no quick solution to that. These are simply aspects of ourselves that are asking for integration along our spiritual journey. I have found the plant medicine path to be very insightful and very rewarding, because in this path we are not looking outside ourselves. There are some basic but very important rules as we engage in this process. However, it is not, at least Amazonian plant medicine is not a path that is full of dogmas of how we should be or should not be. What happens in this process is that our own wisdom, our own beliefs, the beliefs that we truly hold in our consciousness, are enlarged and come to the forefront of our conscious awareness, so that rather than a path to follow, plant medicine is more of a mirror. And people who are trying to turn this mirror into something else, into a religion, into a set of dogmas as to how we should live our lives, kind of misses the point as far as I'm concerned. This is the realm of religion. And as Osho pointed out decades ago, we have enough religion as it is. What we are in need of is more spirituality. And spirituality is simply about looking inside, about making ourselves vulnerable and being willing to be honest with ourselves. And instead of pursuing any kind of agenda, any kind of goal, is simply taking stock, unlike ever before, and seeing what we carry inside. Once I started engaging with plant medicines, particularly ayahuasca and San Pedro, finally my own truths were able to come to the surface. I was no longer relying on somebody else's rules or laws or advice, but could drink from my own wisdom, connect with what I felt was really working and valuable and valid for me in the present moment, rather than following somebody else's advice and rule. This process has also helped me put an end to a lifelong exploration of other spiritual paths and actually integrate my own cultural and religious and spiritual roots. That process of integrating my own Christian heritage has allowed me to better see how I was actually functioning. Up until then, I had not been that aware that wherever I went, no matter how far, whether Asia or even South America, wherever I went, I still carried those roots deep within me, and I was acting out of those paradigms, even though I would tell myself that I'd left the church that I grew up with far behind. Well, that could not have been farther away from the actual reality of my life. I still carried, for instance, a deep need to feel saved, a deep desire to fit in within a certain norm. And also, I carried many other things that my Christian heritage has embedded deeply within itself. And we are all of us, carrying those roots, whatever our roots may be. A plant without roots cannot grow. And simply severing those roots does not do much to help the plant grow. Actually, it will die. So it's important, and this is something that Carl Jung shared with us already in the 50s, long before this planet turned into a global marketplace. He warned us against engaging in a culture, a spiritual tradition that was not the one of our birth. I take that warning to mean that before we can actually drink from another culture's wisdom, it is important for us to become fully aware of where we are coming from. First of all, it is no accident that we may have chosen this or that environment, this or that culture, and even religion at birth. We may come with time to dislike the culture, the religion that we may have been born into. But that judgment does not help us to actually integrate those teachings and those lessons. What is easy for us nowadays is simply look elsewhere. Look elsewhere for a wisdom that we find more appealing. Oftentimes we find that wisdom more appealing because we do not fully engage in that culture. It is easy to have a yoga practice. It is a whole other story to be a Hindu person. Being a Hindu entails responsibilities, duties that are not unlike those of, say, a Christian path or any other path. So we think that we are engaging with another culture, but that engagement is often rather superficial and very selective. Once again, what we do is select those aspects of any particular culture or path that suits us, that we find pleasant, that we find instantly rewarding. That is a good thing. That is the draw to any particular path. However, that relationship, that engaging in that path will present its challenges before we know it. And this is just as true for plant medicine. Oftentimes people have amazing first experiences with, say, ayahuasca, very opening, and we come out of it with a lot of enthusiasm, which is wonderful. I find it a little tricky, and plants can be very tricky. It's a way to draw us closer, and then once we are in it, then the plants ask of us to go deeper, to go even into a place of utter boredom, of numbness, of nothing happening. I believe that most of us have experienced such a plateau at some point or another in the work with plant medicines. And that plateau is a test of our own determination, of our own willingness to follow the path as deeper and deep as we can. For me, the advantage of following a single path at a time and not mixing and matching too much is that this allows me to actually fully savor the gifts of each particular path. When we do that, we discover that we don't need to add anything to the mix, and we can enjoy the full power of each particular path. If we are busy mixing and matching, we are probably going to miss very important details, very important teachings of each individual path. We are in an historical moment where we are, most importantly, doing as we please. And what pleases us is what feels good, what feels pleasant, what is rewarding. However, spirituality is not about that, as far as I'm concerned. If we want to feel good about ourselves, then we better resort to religion. Religion is a way that offers all of those promises, provided that we follow the religion down to a T. Whereas spirituality is about letting go of all of those hopes of the dream of a pleasant afterlife, and instead asks of us that we simply strip down, letting go of any kind of pursuit, of any kind of goal, so that we can finally sit and rest in the divinity that is already within each and every one of us. Blessings.